You're listening to the Soju Sessions, episode 79 on the SojuTalk Nation podcast feed. I'm your host, Crispy, also known as Crispy Wonton, or simply just Anton. And on today's show, the one and only Jae, SojuTalk patron, Gochu Gang member, joins the show to discuss Crush featuring J-Hope with Rush Hour. And we get into some details about Crush, about the artistic elements of the song and the music video. Jay himself is a full-time freelance photographer and video editor, so he was able to grace us with his knowledge and experience and his perspective on how the song and music video were composed as an art piece, and kind of is his interpretation of the coloring and everything that went into the visual storytelling of Rush Hour. All incredible things. I could listen to him talk for hours. We also talk about his K-pop origin story. Jay is also an old person, so we definitely talk about the 90s, and it was just incredibly refreshing and fun to jump in that time machine and really talk about back in the day, you know, before the internet was what it is today. Shout out to Jay, and a quick plug for his work. Check out his website at jyiphoto.com. He does family portraits, headshots, solo portraits, boudoir, weddings, corporate events, pets. He is an incredible photographer, works on the East Coast, but he has done events on the West Coast as well. And yeah, check out his work. jyiphoto.com. All right, let's get into the show. Coming up, my chat with Jay on Crush featuring J-Hope with Rush Hour on the Soju Sessions. Joining Soju Sessions, a brand new member of the Gochu Gang family. He is a family man, and someone who's super interesting that I was just like, you know what? He filled out an intro that I can relate to. He is also an old person. I am 90, so he's a little bit closer to being my peer than a typical member of the community, of the SojuTalk community. The one and only Jay. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, welcome. You are a brand new Gochu Gang member, but you've been around the server and the show for a minute, and it's really cool to kind of see you and have you visible and put a name to a voice and a face. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on.
Remember this face forever.
I will, 100%. It's ingrained, etched into my memory. I like to always start things off with our new guests to get your origin story with K-pop. So what were your first memories, and when did you first start listening to K-pop?
First memories of K-pop were, so I was born in 1985, and I got into it like 96, 97. So I live in an area in Virginia that, there's a lot of Korean people there. And so I went to a Korean church, and I would get like all the info from like all the Hyungs and stuff because they could drive. I couldn't. And so like they would bring all the CDs over, and like HOT came out, and we were all like, whoa. So that was definitely my first memory of K-pop. And yeah, I stuck with it for a while, and then I dropped off around mid second generation. Then I started getting back into it a few years ago. My daughter's 4, and my family's nearby, but we don't get to see them all the time because it's scheduling. And I wanted to have access to the Korean language. So I was like, just put some K-pop on for her. She can hear it. So when I'm talking to her, she can, recognize the sounds. She can speak the words. It's important to me that she, because she's half Korean and half white. So I want to make sure she has connection to both sides.
That's incredible. There are probably people on the server who are like 96. I wasn't born yet. I was born in 2000. So it really does like warm my heart to talk to a fellow old person. It's like, yes,
Right?
we lived the same wars in the 90s and 2000s. Not necessarily wars itself as far as like media and like fandom, because I
Yeah.
think it was actually a bit more tame as far as seeing it. I'm sure like the way people talked about it is probably about the same, but the internet is not the same. There was no internet. So
Yeah, there's no internet. It was so hard to get like to hear the music. Like we had Music Bank we could watch every week, and that was pretty much it. Do
dang.
you remember?
Yeah.
We had like the Korean TV channel, like
No.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. Like we'd had to either find a way to get to a store, and like I was in 96 like 11, like I wouldn't drive, and I didn't have any money, so I couldn't like buy a CD. So Music Bank was like pretty much it. And now it's awesome. Like you can just type K-pop and listen to whatever you want.
Yeah. There's just an immediacy to being able to access media, right? Whether that's a video
Right.
on YouTube or a song on Spotify, or literally being able to text like, your favorite idols on an app. It's kind of crazy. Well, let's go all the way back to the 90s, right? So I do want to like go in this time machine with you. Just for the children who don't know, we had to listen to physical media. I remember tapes and tape players, going to Tower Records and buying CDs. What was that like for you, kind of being an Asian American and, seeing all these images on TV, on MTV? Me, like that's how I saw it, right? And then
Right.
having the desire to wanting to engage with music, but just not having the avenue. What was that process for you as far as getting yourself out to a music store and then the wonder and amazement of actually being surrounded by all of this physical media?
Yeah, it was crazy because, growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. So pretty much the music that we listened to was on the radio or on Korean TV. I didn't have MTV because I didn't have cable. So yeah, I would every now and then get a hold of like a blank cassette, and you like turn the radio on, you wait for your song, you record it so you can listen to it later. That was it. And like sometimes they'd have like at church they'd have like the big like bazaars or whatever. They'd have music out and I could listen to that. But aside from that, I listened to a lot of oldies. My parents were really into music. So I was able to listen to like old Korean music, and like I listened to a lot of Beach Boys growing up because those were the CDs that my dad had. Um, and a lot of CCR, Beatles, that type of thing. So yeah, that was cool. Um, but yeah, I wasn't really able to get myself into like a real music store until I was like 16 or 17. 17, because that's when I was able to drive. And I remember going in and just being like super overwhelmed, like all this stuff is here. Like when I would go to like a garage sale, like someone in my neighborhood, it'd be all like records from the 60s and like Christmas compilations. And then you see all this media and you're like, I don't know if I have enough time to listen to all this. And I definitely don't have the money to listen to all this. But they had those like, headphone stations.
Yep. Yep.
You could go and you could like press and listen to a little bit of each thing. I thought that was like amazing.
Yeah. God. So like I'm like PTSD to the 90s, I guess. Maybe not PTSD. Those were pretty fond memories, to be honest. No, I very much relate to like the Beach Boys and kind of the oldies of Western pop, kind of getting into like Asian culture. That was my grandma's kind of music, right? She had the Beach Boys on CDs. I think they're like burned CDs actually from like the Philippines. I think that was like late 90s at that point. And then she had
with, like, the faded
yeah,
image
like
on
the printed labels and
cover.
printed covers. Yeah. And then she had one of it was like a Motown collection.
Oh yeah.
It was it's really fond memories. Yeah, shout out to my grandma. She passed away about 6 years ago. So she means a lot to me, and it really does bring back a lot of memories of like growing up and trying to access like music and culture, and trying to have that define will help define like you and your personality and your outlook, right? I kind of want to go a little bit deeper as far as your development as a person and just being Asian American on the East Coast. You
Well,
said you
at
grew up
first,
in a Korean environment with a lot of people in your community. What was that like as far as having that community? And then, when you stepped out of it, did you feel that you were different? And were you able to kind of put words to the fact that you
yeah.
are from a different culture?
So it was kind of a unique situation in that the area that I grew up in is like very diverse. I love that about it. And so I had easy access to all sorts of cultures, and I could um, connect with the Korean American community really easily. But the school that I went to was a little bit further away, and I was pretty much the only Korean person there. I had a friend who I was like super close with, but her parents were not Korean, as she was adopted, and so I didn't really have anyone to really connect to on like a deeper level about like Korean culture and stuff like that. I definitely couldn't talk to anyone Korean. And so actually my Korean suffered a bit. Um, but yeah, it was cool because on Sundays, like I would go to church and then I have access to like anything I want to know about Korean culture, Korea, what's going on in the news, just being able to speak Korean. So that was great. That was super cool. I actually really look forward to it every week.
Yeah. Um, God, I totally feel a lot of that where it's like you have the family culture that you grew up with, and then you get put into a new environment that doesn't exactly reflect what that is, but you kind of
Yeah.
have to adapt on the fly to it. What was it like for you to kind of bring in a lot of the a lot of things that you felt were normal into your school life? Whether that was kind of just the clothes that you wore, the way you carried yourself, or even the language that you eventually lost. I lost it too. My family speaks Bisaya. I'm Filipino and Chinese, and I can understand it, but I can no longer speak it just because I was just not able to practice it over time. Did you have any reservations about having your culture be a more visible part of your social life growing up?
Um, Good question. Let me think about that. So the schools that I went to, well, okay, let me start. So from third grade going all the way throughout graduation, I pretty much stayed with the same group of kids. And our school was actually fairly small. My graduating class was less than 300. And everyone really got along. And like I said, everyone was pretty diverse. So it was pretty easy to be who I am. Um, but it was strange when I got access to a car and I started going places after school. Like up until that point, the only restaurants I'd really gone to were Korean restaurants because I, tag along with my parents and we get whatever. And so, man, going to like an American restaurant and like, how there'll be like skits and jokes about like, oh, super salad. And I'd be like, what's the super salad? I didn't understand that you could have a
Yeah.
super salad, that type of thing. And yeah, it wasn't until even later, like a little bit past college, that I realized people like didn't like the smell of like kimchi and like the taste of it and thought that was like kind of weird. And I was like, well, I mean, it's good. Like,
Yeah.
because I and my friends and I had always been like kind of culture exchange.
Hmm.
So, my one of my girlfriends is Filipino, so I like got a lot of exchange with her family, and I had a lot of Chinese friends too. A lot of exchange, a lot of Viet friends there too, and just like actually all cultures. Um, yeah, just it never occurred to me that someone might think it's kind of weird because those whole like the community, my school community was small enough and diverse enough that we really embraced the whole like melting pot vibe throughout. And so people would be interested, um, but it was kind of like a one-way street of information. Like I could only tell them what I knew about Korean culture, but I couldn't take anything in to learn more about it. So it got a little frustrating that way because sometimes I'd come across a question I just wouldn't know um, the answer to. And Yeah, I think that was the main frustration about being pretty much the only Korean kid at my school.
No, that's it's a great story. I do appreciate that you shared that, just because the Asian American experience is it's one of those where I never reflected on it until I was much older.
Yeah.
Mid to late 20s, I would say, is when I really started to dig into what identity meant and what it meant to be part of a larger Asian identity community, and then what it meant to be part of my specific Asian American community. What I really landed on as far as an emotional conclusion is that, yes, although we come from different nations, Korean people, Filipino people, there is some tenets of a similar experience, a shared experience with just being in a world that
Karaoke.
karaoke, 100%. The
Karaoke.
singers,
100%.
yes.
Yeah.
Filipino. I cannot sing. A lot of my family loves
you
to
can.
sing. Oh my gosh. I have an aunt who is an entertainer in the Philippines.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like her daughter is like 19, so she's like an aunt, but she knows like all the celebrities. She does like the variety shows and stuff. Great singer.
Wow.
So it is in my blood. I cannot express it, but yes,
You just have to
karaoke.
unlock it. Just level up.
Okay. Well, under your tutelage, I think that is an excuse / reason for us to continue to hang out and talk.
Yeah.
But yes, just the idea of kind of that shared immigrant experience, right? Whether it's our personal immigrant experience, or if we're second or first generation, and kind of our parents and what they passed down to us. Let's skip ahead a little bit to kind of where you are today.
Cool.
You are in your mid-30s. You have a family, you have a daughter. And I did want to touch on identity a bit, because you did mention that you wanted to expose your daughter to Korean music to allow her to re-engage with her culture and identity and the Korean language. What's that experience been like for you to introduce your daughter to K-pop with the internet the way it is today, and how are you navigating that as a father?
She absolutely loves it. She loves music of all kinds. She's always like singing and dancing and stuff, so that's great. And uh yeah, she's 4, and I don't think she quite grasps the concept of like race at all, which is totally great. But at the same time, she does understand that, yeah, I'm Korean and American. Like, I can speak Korean. I can understand a little bit. Harmony and Haraboji are Korean, and Samchun is too. And yeah, for a long time with COVID, as I said, my family's high risk. So for over 2 years, she had those me, my wife, and my daughter. So she didn't have like physical access to, well, she couldn't interface, in person with anyone Korean, like my parents, my aunts and uncles, et cetera, et cetera. And so pretty much the only exposure she had other than me was pretty much K-pop, because I'm not gonna have her watch like Korean movies right now. Like she wouldn't be able to understand it, and she's learning to read. So, eventually she'll be able to do subtitles, but I can't like read the subtitles to her while it's going on. So it's been pretty much K-pop for a while, and then, in the past year we've been hanging out with my parents, and they speak Korean to her primarily. And she gets it, but she doesn't get it. Like, you can kind of like intuit like what they're saying and what they want. But she is definitely picking up, and she's really good on the vocabulary. And my wife, who's awesome, she had no real I wouldn't say no real I would say no deep exposure to Korean culture until she met me. But she's all in. She's like more into K-pop than I am, I think.
Oh, is she on the server?
She's not, because she is terrible about responding to any sort of messages online or on the phone or anything like that. So
Fair enough. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, just know that if you want to relay the message, she's more than welcome to lurk, because there's just a lot happening. And then she can kind of see how incredibly degenerate we all are. Yes, I call this all degenerate. Yes, you guys are. It's okay. Everyone gets it.
I am too. You
Yeah.
have no idea.
Well, we are going to find out. But let's backtrack to your daughter. Incredible story, incredible way to kind of reintroduce her to her own heritage, and then even just be a form of language adoption, right?
Yes, yeah.
One of my friends on the server who's been on the show, his name's Reach. He
Mhm.
learned Korean in his early 20s, I think, during college. He is not a native Korean speaker, but he learned it through a friend who was translating things for him, and then he started watching K dramas and just TV shows with
Yeah.
subtitles on, with Korean subtitles on. So he taught
Oh,
himself to
yeah?
read. Yeah,
Wow,
and I was
that's
like,
impressive.
that's amazing. So well, first of all, your daughter is much younger, so the plasticity in her brain will allow her to pick it up
Yeah.
amazingly. But it still gives me hope that maybe I can eventually pick up something with all the consumption of content that I'm doing. So, God, that's incredible. Well, so how's it going as far as picking it up? Is she able to kind of use it fluently in spots? And is she comfortable speaking in Korean, engaging kind of in Korean culture with people who are Korean, at least in public?
Yeah, I would say it's more akin to, a lot of my friends are, Hispanic, like, kinda like the Spanglish, so you'll be, like, talking English and, like, Spanish word will pop in.
Okay.
It's pretty much like that. So she knows some vocab, but she doesn't know the grammar.
Got it.
So we're working on that, but right now I'm kind of working on vocab, and she's gotten really good at writing in English and reading. So right after that, she's learning how to read and write Korean.
4 years old.
Yeah,
This daughter, you have a genius on your hands, man.
dude, she's dope.
When your daughter is old enough to rewatch this episode, we are speaking so highly of her. Man, her ego is
No,
going
you
to
didn't.
balloon.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, what's her favorite group right now?
she likes rolling quartz a lot.
So not only is she a genius, she's a hipster. Got
Yeah,
it. Okay.
definitely. Yeah, and BTS, she loves Jimin a lot.
Okay.
She
Okay.
has a doll. There's one inexplicably in like a 7-Eleven, and she like ran to it and grabbed the box, which is like really out of character for her because even at the toy store like today, um, she was like, "Oh, look at that. That's nice. That's cool." She never like grabbed something, but that day she was like, "That's Jimin. I want her."
It's like, what
So
is he
yeah,
doing at 7-Eleven? This is abstract. I'm going to feed into my impulses just
yeah,
like
he was
this.
waiting for me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. How did she find rolling quartz? Was that through your introduction?
My wife found them.
So your wife is the hipster. Got it. Got it.
We're both she's more into okay, so when we met, I was more into, like, the indie hipster stuff.
Hmm.
Like, I would be going to, like, open mics and stuff and all that, and my friends were all, like, musicians. Well, I mean, they still are, but yeah, and she was definitely more into, like, the punk and rock and metal scene. So, it was really cool when we first got together, we would be going to shows, like, every weekend, and we'd kinda, like, go back and forth between genres, so yeah, she found them and she was like, "Gidget will like this," and she put it on, and Gidget was like, "Yeah."
That is so freaking cool. Oh man. Well, now we got to talk about you and your wife.
Yeah,
So on the server, you did mention that you're marriid and you, prior to COVID, go do about 30 plus shows a year, live shows.
yeah.
Well, how'd you meet and how did you do that? So then you can tell us all single simps over here the strats in order to find and procure a life partner as wonderful as your wife.
Yeah, she's awesome. Her name is Jess. We actually met on OkCupid, like, way back in the day when it was not trash.
When it didn't
Um,
get
this
sold.
was yeah, this was, like,
Yeah.
pre-Tinder and everything like that too,
Oh,
so
awesome. Yeah.
OkCupid was kinda like that. Um, she has a condition, and I worked in a clinic before I did photography where that was the thing, and so we kinda, like, talked about that a little, and I was just kinda bold. I was like, "Hey, do you wanna come over and hang out?" And she was like, "Okay." And we met up. We had, like, 3 or 4 dates that week, and then the next week, she was like, "Hey, I'm not crazy, and I'm not a stalker, but I had already signed a lease and she moved in like a block over from where I was living at the time. So
So it
yeah,
was
we've
meant to
been kind
be.
of inseparable. Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing. Okay, so now tell me about how it kind of evolved into the music and how did you broach that? How did you get to that point where, oh, hey, like, I like this music. Maybe you like this music too. And kind of take me through that process of just getting to know her and her interest.
Yeah, well, on OkCupid they had like the interest thing, and like I recognized a few names in like her music list, and she recognized some of mine too. And we would kind of hang out. Um, oh yeah, she's really into horror movies. Like really into horror movies. And when I met, I was really not into horror movies. So yeah, I've leveled up on the bravery, but like for a while I was definitely like under the covers while she was like watching everyone get slaughtered.
Oh
Um,
man,
yeah, but
you're
yeah,
right. She is freaking awesome.
yeah, she's cool. Yeah, she's the best. Um, but yeah, at the time I was hanging out a lot at this cafe with my friends who were all musicians, and they had like a weekly open mic. But it was the kind of open mic where everyone did like originals instead of covers. And so, she would come to that, we would really enjoy it. We'd stay there all night, and then we kind of like, hey, I was thinking about going to the show. Do you want to go? I was like, yeah. And we just kind of bounce back and forth on that. And we go to a lot of my friend shows. And then we go to shows of acts that she would be following. And anytime I'd get a gig where I was shooting a show, like I'd have her, get on the guest list with me. And then it just kind of went from there.
So you're truly living the rom com of a late 20-year-old
Yeah.
finding the love of your life and then just going to
Yes.
music. It's just, oh my goodness, this
Yeah.
is
Oh,
amazing.
and
Can I write
I
this
had
script?
also gotten out of a really bad breakup right before then, pretty much.
Yeah, no.
So that's the exposition to the rom-com. Yeah.
You are a rom com. You are someone write your script of your life story and then make sure you get an enormous check because
Yeah, I'll act in it, just pay me.
oh yeah,
I
we
want
could do the Kumail Nanjiani thing and just have
it.
you
Okay.
in that movie. I forgot do you remember that movie that he did?
Which movie?
It's the Kumail movie. It's about his life.
Yes, yeah. It's gonna bug me.
It's
I'll
gonna
I'll
bug me
come up
too.
with it.
Yeah. No, I love that movie, and you are Kumail Nanjiani as far as I'm concerned. So,
We
um,
had Indian food tonight, so it's cool.
you see how like the universe aligns so seamlessly sometimes. Well, so take me through the genres of music that you guys bonded over and kind of the types of shows that you've gone to. So I know that you mentioned that your friends do music. What style of music, what genre, and what K-pop shows have evolved into your regular schedule?
Yeah. So my friends were definitely indie, definitely just indie. We can just say indie. Just covers, that's all of them. So hey, if you're watching and you want to listen to some good music, look up The Family Plots on Spotify, and Norman Rockwell. Those were the two that my closest friends were in. Um, but definitely listen to the Family Plots album because it's amazing. It's fantastic. And I wouldn't say that unless I thought so. Yeah. So we went to a lot of those shows. We definitely went to a lot of punk shows. Um, Against Me, we went to a lot of their shows. Just really into them. Got to see. I'm trying to think of like the bigger names that we've seen. Dinosaur Jr. was like the loudest show in the world ever. We were in a small place in Baltimore called Autobar, which is basically like the size of this room times like four. And it's all boxed in. So every sound that comes out just like goes through. I felt like it in my heart. Like literally, my blood cells were like, yeah, it was amazing. And this is kind of a hot take, but I kind of hate it when people for live shows ramble in between songs. Like I know you have to
Hmm.
do like,
Okay.
someone might have to do like a switch of equipment or something, but you don't have to like talk forever. but Jay Mashis for that show. He said hello, played for 2 hours. Thank you. And that was it. I was like, that's exactly what I paid money for. I drove 2 hours for this, paid $20 a ticket. It's perfect. Best show ever. Yeah, and a lot of the smaller local acts too. Queens of the Stone Age we saw. That was amazing.
I recognize that
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
I'm not a hipster, but I recognize that name.
We've seen Andrew WK. Everyone knows him. I've done photos for him at a show.
Nice.
The Misfits did photos there too. But a lot of the smaller, more indie bands, we've seen a lot of those. Brand New we saw on their reunion tour. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really good. We're I think at Merriweather or Wolf Trap. God, so many memories.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I know the pandemic has like put a stop to a lot of it for about 2 years, but now it's picking up again. I'm super happy and excited because I forgot how much I missed it. I think one of the last shows I went to in like 2019 was Tiffany Young when she was touring as a soloist.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't think too much of it. It's like, oh, I'll see her again. Like, oh, she's making her way as a entertainer away from Korea. She's doing all English music, and then the pandemic hits, and everything gets flipped upside down to the point where it's very okay for her to come back to Korea because that's where her work is. Right. It's just kind of crazy to see how much things have changed since then. And I'm really glad that that was kind of a touch point as far as one of the last shows I went to. And then now as the world's opening up again, it's like one of the first reintroductions into like live music again. Not that I went to the SM show because I would have loved to go to that SM show with like Girls' Generation, but it's just really cool that that's very much part of the natural order of things again. Right. So any K-pop shows that you've gone to this year?
I haven't gone to any shows in the past few years, so I'm just waiting for the numbers to go down enough for us to like feel safe, and we're going.
Right.
We're definitely going.
Nice. Yeah. I'm gonna pull for you guys. Spring's good. It's gonna happen. Something good's gonna happen in spring. Someone's gonna do a stadium tour. It's gonna happen for you guys. I'm pulling for you guys. I don't know how to transition out of this, so we're just going to go into it. So, as the pandemic kind of pushed people indoors, and we had to find a different way to engage with music, find a new community. How did you find SojuTalk? And what were kind of the first memories you had of listening to the show that made you really feel connected to what the crew was talking about?
Yeah, I actually went through my playlist to see the first played episode. And it was episode 159, October 4th, 2021. So pretty much a year ago.
Yeah.
Like almost, yeah. I don't know. I remember when podcasts became a thing, and I was just like, I'm not interested at all. And then 2 years ago, my friends started their podcast, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a listen. I was like, okay, I kind of like it. So like, hey, we like listen to all their episodes. Let's find something else to listen to. And we were like, I wonder if there's anything that's sort of like K-pop podcast. We can try that out because I listened to their podcast throughout their podcast. Check it out, Pink Kink podcast. And I listened to some woodworking podcasts because that's a hobby of mine as well. And kind of like ran out of material. I was like, K-pop. We were driving in the car. We had 2 or 3 hours ago. And we were like, we'll find something we both like enjoy listening to because she'll listen to the woodworking stuff, but there's no real connection there. And so we found SojuTalk right at the top, and I was like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And we listened to it, and we're like, okay, their opinions are good, the format we like, and they're funny, and I love their voices. So, okay, we'll just subscribe. And pretty much anytime we'd be in the car for more than like an hour and a half, we'd be like, you want to put it on? And so, yeah, we've just been listening every week since.
That's such a wonderful story. Doug, Warren, and Anita, I'm clipping this out for you guys. No, that's amazing. First of all, shout out to the algorithm, putting that at the top.
Yeah.
And second of all, just and I've said this millions of times, but I always feel like it bears repeating. I really do feel like the relationship is really at the forefront of how they enjoy K-pop, right? Where it's very much the chemistry and the fact they've known each other for so long and they've experienced so many things, right? Not only has their friendship taken them through a very formative time in their life as far as being college students, but you know, they're OGs.
Yeah, I want to hear what they're talking about before recording this episode.
Oh yeah, today. Yeah, they said they talked for about an hour. It's like, what? Okay.
About all the drama stuff? I mean, come on, right? If you're not gonna record it, write it out.
Yeah, we could do like a patrons only episode.
Exactly.
See, that's the next evolution, Warren.
I got the popcorn.
Yeah, we're here for the tea, the really, really just like strong tea. No, and I really do appreciate everything that they've done to kind of establish kind of the voice and tone of the way that they talk about K-pop. So it's all amazing stuff. So that first episode that you listened to, do you remember the group? And then or the groups that they were talking about?
I think it was the Twice comeback was in the title.
Feels.
It
was October.
Maybe?
Huh. Wow. Okay. I think.
Yeah.
Wow. It has been a year. That's incredible.
Weird, right?
Yeah. So as you were listening to that episode, and I know that you were kind of engaging it within yourself, was there anything that tipped you off that at least reminded you or had you think about your daughter and how she would listen to a show like this or engage with content, supplementary content on the internet with regards to K-pop?
Right. Not now, but definitely in the future, I know she'll be interested, and she's very good at exploring her interests. So yeah, she, later on when she actually has access to a computer and can type and spell, she'll probably be interested in listening to a show like SojuTalk, and I think we'd be able to put it in front of her. There's nothing that a kid can't handle, I think, but yeah. And I think it's also a great way for her to to introduce people to K-pop, you can put the music in front of them, but you could also put something like SojuTalk in front of them as well, because just like listening to a Korean song when you don't speak the language and you're not familiar with it at all can be kind of like overwhelming, especially when they're like, "Oh, listen to this album." Because not only the language is different, but the melodies are a little bit different as well, the style. So having something that supplement like SojuTalk can really be helpful for someone who's getting into K-pop, because it's something that can anchor them into I'm assuming they're familiar with English, but they can listen to a song and listen to kind of like the breakdown and opinions of it and get like news in English, so they kind of aren't feeling so out of place. I think that's a really good thing. So, if she wants to introduce her friends later on to K-pop, that's something she could definitely do. Be like, "Hey, check this out." And, SojuTalk had an episode on it. So, you can kind of like listen to them together back to back. And I think that's a really good way to rope people in. Not that we have to. Like, it's good.
You hear that, crew? Your show needs to be alive in the next, what would we say, like 5 years, 6 years from now, right? Yeah. For your daughter to be of age, of intellectual development, to also then listen to a podcast that will supplement her K-pop fandom.
Yeah,
so
sell children's shirt so she could wear it to school.
Yes, yeah, we got to get SojuTalk merch aside from stickers. I got this in a giveaway many years ago, but yes,
oh,
I am
nice.
one of the few. I think Doug does give it away occasionally for certain things. No, that's incredible. And it's really cool that you have that trust in your daughter. It does sound like your daughter has an incredible mind already. But I mean, as any kid is developing, right? Are there any concerns for you as a parent with regards to the internet and media literacy and kind of understanding how to interpret the information, the images, the content that your daughter is going to see or eventually engage with?
Oh yeah, definitely. Even now, we kind of have to screen what we put in front of her. Especially my wife and I was talking about this like right before this interview. The movies that we watched growing up, maybe we have to revisit before we put in front of our kid because times are different. Uh, Certain things that were considered okay back then definitely would not fly now, and they shouldn't. So that, and yeah, I know there have been issues on platforms where, you in a kid's profile, but some of the content that's put in front is either purposefully um ex- explicit or, accidentally gets through the filter. So um luckily now she can't type to search anything. So anything that she wants to watch, like I'm able to like go through the channel first and kind of like watch a few videos, get a feel for the vibe and be like, okay, this is cool. We'll like put in the subscription list so that we know that either I or my wife have already screened it, and so it's cool. Um, but yeah, as she gets older, I guess we're gonna have to like, feels weird saying it. I feel like super old, but we're gonna have to put like restrictions on like the router and stuff, like with certain places in her devices, because it's not cool. Some of the stuff that's out there for sure.
Yeah. And those are things you do have to really figure out, right? As far as like being a
Mm.
parent and being a parent of children going through this kind of transitional period in technology and information. So, no, shout out to you, man. It's a lot of work. I don't have a kid, so it's like I'm not really thinking about it, but at the same time, I am kind of thinking about kind of the bigger picture and understanding and interpreting information at different developmental periods in anyone's life, right?
Right.
Um, I mean, at 18, you're supposed to be an adult, and yet I feel like at 18, depending
Definitely
on
not.
your personal experiences and just what you've been exposed to, maybe you shouldn't be on the internet either. So,
Yeah.
yeah, not speaking to anyone in particular. Please, SojuTalk, you guys are all great. It's just in general, just scroll through Twitter or Reddit just for 5 minutes, and you will understand.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, well, let's hop into some music talk. So
Cool.
we've got one song that we're going to talk about. I love this song. I love this artist. I've got Crush
Yeah.
featuring J-Hope with Rush Hour, released September 22nd. The main show, the crew talked about it, and they raved quite a bit. Doug loved this song. It's in his top 10, 15 of the year.
Yeah, I heard that. I was like, wow,
Pretty
dude. Okay.
good. When Doug says something like that, it's really something that stands out and take notice of.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it just he says it with such passion that I do feel a very authentic viewpoint when he does say it. So
Right.
let me get your thoughts on Crush and J-Hope. How did you kind of receive the song, and what are your initial feelings about the collaboration as Crush's return from the military?
Yeah. The song, my wife found it first. She said she loved it. She put it in front of me, and I was like, I like this a lot. Yeah, I really like it. I dig the groove. I dig the feel. I like the music video. It was just like, it's a new song, but I felt nostalgic listening to it. It's definitely like, we're gonna make a song that's 90s influenced in a music video that is as well. Like just right in front of you. And it all made sense. And I could definitely hear a bunch of influences from other acts, but it not to say that he's ripping off anyone, because he's not, because the way he blended it all together was definitely its own thing. And it's like, you have your ingredients, the way you put it together, you make the dish, and it was good. It was tasty.
You are a true disciple of Warren with the food analogy. No, I feel very similarly. I absolutely love the song. I love the aesthetic. I love that this is kind of Crush coming back and saying, hey, I'm going to do a really funky, cool song. I'm going to let loose with all my emotions and pent up things from the military. I also saw the video that Doug was talking about with Crush on Wendy's radio show.
Yeah, I
And
didn't catch that.
I think KME posted it somewhere on the server, but yeah, Crush was vibing. He was losing his
Going off,
mind,
yeah.
and I love Wendy's show just in general. And Wendy was having the time of her life. I do like kind of the blend of the new and the old with this release altogether. So musically, definitely draws on a lot of inspirations from the 90s, even a bit of Motown. So I did want to drop that in from kind of our earlier conversation. I felt that immediately, whether that was a little bit of Stevie Wonder and kind of the lightness of Marvin Gaye, but then still kind of more of an edge, like a funky edge to it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a very big parallel here with kind of Bruno Mars and what he did in the mid 2010s, right? Where he brought that 90s aesthetic back into everything. But the newness of everything is the fact that, yes, the setting is something that's pulled out of like In Living Color or just like one of those 90s like stage shows, right? But the set itself is super modern. It's like really up to date. It's like, oh, this is like set up like one, like very high quality, great budget. But like a lot of these shots are just things that are very modern, right? Like you wouldn't imagine doing a shot like this back in the 90s. So I do kind of love that blend.
Film was expensive back then. So whatever janky shot they got was what they kept. And I really kudos to the video editor because the style that they pulled off with the color grading and everything. So I do photography. I also do film, like for my personal. There's a film called Kodak Ektar. It's like that is the film grade that I immediately was like, all right, there you go. I love it. I love the I wouldn't say smog, but the fog. Like I was like, yeah, that's coming out of the manholes. That's definitely it. That's the 90s.
Oh, I was gonna allude to that too, but you said it so beautifully. Yeah. When J-Hope gets introduced in the second verse, and like you said, the manhole, like it's steam, right? It comes out of a manhole, but then also kind of like falling into the environment and just like it's very seamless and smooth, right? How he's transitioned into. Oh God! So see, you bring out like the technical aspects of things, and I am very much a layman's about things. I know a little bit, but not as much as you. So I
like Crush's hat, the orange one. Yes, like, that's like the Kangol hat. That's definitely 90s.
Yes, style. The bucket hat. G Dragon has tried to bring it back occasionally, but I don't think it's stuck. I'll try to bring it back.
You know why it hasn't stuck? Because G-Dragon is like on another plane of existence. Like
true.
He could pull it off, but I don't know if I can. But Crush, he seems more like, especially with this song, more like down to earth. Like, okay, maybe I'll order one on Amazon.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're killing it. Just feeling all the things I'm feeling very similarly about. Anita really liked the choreography and the fact that it matched really well with the concept and the sound. What are your thoughts on just how wild Crush went with his dance moves and J-Hope being in there and being not reminded as if you forgot, but for me it was a great reminder. It's like, oh yeah, he's part of the dance line. He dances great. Definitely. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, I love seeing him dance. Like one of my daughter's favorite songs, Chicken Noodle Soup, J-Hope and Becky G. And I love it because I used to be able to dance really well, but now I'm like kind of like pudgy and I don't move as well. But yeah, I love the dancing in that. I really like the dancing in this. Like the big group, everyone on the street dance reminded me of, again, like the 90s videos, especially like East Coast and Southern rap. They would definitely have like everyone coming out.
Like block party-ish, right?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I really appreciate about the choreography, the differences between Crush and J-Hope. So anytime there's like, especially like the chorus, you'd have Crush in the middle, everyone dancing around him, and like a lot of it will be in sync, but then he'd like have his own moves. So he might like go and like flex while everyone goes down. So he's kind of like the hero in the shot, because he's a star. And when J-Hope does his verse, the whole time he's dancing in sync with all the backup dancers. Never at any point does he have his own moves. And his last line was like, all right, I'm gonna let Crush take the lead. I was like, that's good. I like that.
God, the attention to detail on the music video, and amazing for you for calling that out, because I think internally or subconsciously, it does tell that kind of story where it's definitely focused on Crush and J-Hope is complementary.
Yeah.
to the music video, but the way you describe it now gives it such a much more, so much more volume and just like feeling, emotional volume, right? Where it kind of fills in all the spaces and the cracks that like I might have missed, but now it's like, oh yeah, all those
Yeah,
things
it's
are
like
amazing.
everyone picks up on it. They just might not consciously. I do so much with like visual arts that like I had to turn off that part of my brain when I like watch movies and TV shows. Otherwise, I'll just like focus too much on like, oh, how did they like this and all that stuff. But you know, in preparation for this, I watched that music video probably like 20 times because like, oh, it's like in the middle of the prompt, so I should definitely be prepared. So I after like the fourth time watching it, I was like, I picked up on it. I was like, that is genius. I really like how it all comes together.
God, that's incredible. Well, let's go with all of your expertise. So so that is kind of J Hope's part is in the middle of the music video, right? As the music video kind of evolves. The story that kind of came out of the behind the scenes video that came out, I think it was today or yesterday, is that it's Crush kind of entering a city that there's a lot of weight to him, right? And just the hustle and bustle of the big city, and kind of letting his imagination, letting him float and give him wings to kind of float within the chaos. What is your interpretation of the way that he's describing that relative to how it was executed in the music video?
Um, Let me think about that. I could definitely see it because it's definitely a established. It's not just a set. Well, it is a set, but it's not supposed to feel like a set made just for this video. It's supposed to feel like kind of like it's been there for a while, you know, all with how some of the signs have been faded, the fonts that they use for the marquees and stuff like that, the cars that they have there, the where like you feel like you know like okay this is a set they put on, but it's supposed to feel like it's been there for a while, and then we all know he's come back and he's back, and I am not gonna go too far into the lyrics because I don't remember them that well. But I definitely got to feel like, hey, you know, I'm here, I'm back, I'm fresh. This is gonna be me. This is where I'm gonna go. And the tempo, the key that I was in, and the choreography definitely conveyed the, you know, this is kind of like how I'm gonna be from now on. This is what I want to do. I'm gonna give this a shot. Let's go for it.
God, how I'm gonna be from now on. What's my direction in life moving forward from this point,
Yeah.
right? This transition point of coming back from the military.
And it wasn't so like, oh, this is me. That it can be like, this is me for now. This is how I'm gonna be from now on. And you know what? I'm easy. You know, if I end up wanting to change, that's cool.
I love that. This is me for now. That is an amazing encapsulation of kind of the vibe and feeling and personal growth, right? Because I feel like
Yeah.
just kind of thinking back of when I was in my mid 20s and thinking, oh, I'm either the person I am today or the adult version of me is in the distant future, right? It's always
Right.
these two very strict dichotomies of like rigid personality. And now it's like I'm a little older, I'm in my 60s. I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm this way today, but maybe tomorrow I change and grow and I'm a little different tomorrow. And I feel like you captured that so beautifully and kind of Crush's message here in the song. God, man.
But I also like how happy it is and energetic. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you killed it, man. Well, I'll let you end it. Any closing thoughts you have on the song, the music video, J Hope himself? We didn't talk too much about J Hope, but what are your thoughts about him going into this direction, right, as a soloist? Because he did mention in the behind the scenes that this is the first time he's featuring on someone else's track as a soloist away from BTS proper promotions. You know, his last album, his album was very different, very edgy, very, very good, I think, in a lot of ways. Not that I think it's an incredible artistic endeavor that is so different from what we know about him in K-pop. Now he's doing this, where there's a little bit of J-Hope sprinkled in there, but it's leans into K-pop a little bit more. And I like it. I feel like this is a great lane for him. What are your thoughts on J-Hope kind of continuing to evolve here now with Crush?
I like it. I like it a lot. Oh, let me mention something from the music video that I thought at first was like really cheesy, but then I was like, okay, maybe it's not cheesy. There's always fire in like K-pop videos, and like I forget the line, but he's like doing his thing. There's an important line, and like flames come up behind him. I think he's talking about like this is my direction from now, or this is what I'm gonna do. And I was like, okay, the fire looks the fire is cheesy. It's kind of out of place. But then I was like, oh yeah, but his last song was like Arson, and there's like a lot of fire there. Maybe that's an homage to that. But yeah, my wife and I have talked about this as well. With the guys in BTS kind of taking their time to I feel like okay, another hot take. I feel like with all the English songs that they did, especially since they're not all fluent in English, they kind of had a trajectory, and then they hit a point where they kind of lost their voice because they couldn't contribute as much to the lyrics because it's in a language that's not something they're fluent in. And they had a few comebacks in a row where that was the case. And I felt like maybe they were frustrated with that. And they wanted to kind of see, we had a moment to think and like, where are we going? And like, what have we done? And where do we want to go? I feel like this is a really good time for them to kind of figure out. They're like the Planeteers, like they each have their own like thing, but when they come together, they save the world. But yeah, I really
God,
like that.
90s people are crying right now. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
I needed every bit of that.
yeah. But I really, my wife and I were talking about J-Hope going out first. I think that was perfect because he's had a bunch of solo songs like Chicken Noodle Soup and features before that. And he definitely has a pretty strong identity, like musically. Um, Definitely a lot of like East Coast hip hop and West Coast actually. A lot of both. Like when I was listening to the production on his album, I was like, yeah, this whoever produced this has definitely listened to and like deep dives into like West Coast hip hop for sure. Um, so yeah, I knew he was gonna go out and do his thing, and his first single that came out was so different than like the stuff that BTS has been putting out. We were like, okay, yeah, I'm excited to see what everyone else puts out now. So I am excited to see what everyone puts out now, and I'm excited to see P Nation and BTS. They've had Psy with Suga, and they've had um Crush with J Hope. Who's next? Like, are they gonna continue this little marriage thing?
If it was me, I'd put Hayes and V. I
Yeah,
like those two a lot.
that's good.
Yeah, I'm also kind of moody, and I like Hayes' direction of moody music. So, and
Yeah.
V does a lot of OSTs. Well, he's done OSTs that I've liked a lot. I think the last one was off of Our Beloved Summer,
Mhm.
and I like that song that he did. But yeah, no, amazing, incredible analysis. God, you are just a wealth and plethora of like creative output, and it's amazing that you have this perspective because of your profession, because of just the things that you do on the side. And honestly, I could listen to you for 10 hours. I could listen to you all day. No problem, man.
Okay, I get up at 8 o'clock, so just call me. I'll put you on speaker the whole day.
Oh god, you're so cool, man. Well, with that being said, you will definitely be on the show if I need an analyst for anything creative, and I will
Yeah,
put you
definitely.
down for sure, man.
Yeah, I'll make
Um,
sure Jess is here with me. She's napping right now.
you know what? Okay, we'll talk offline. We'll
All right.
we'll do that. We're
Okay.
gonna move now into closing thoughts. I just like to wrap up any conversation I have with any of the lovely members of the SojuTalk Nation. Just how are you, and what are you looking forward to for the rest of the year? We are in the final run, the final 4 months, God, final quarter of the month of the year of 2022.
Yeah,
Um, anything on the horizon for you that you're looking forward to, or just things that will be keeping you busy as the year wraps up?
I'm definitely gonna be busy. Yeah, like I said, I took a lot of time off from photography due to COVID, and actually a lot of photography took time off. Period. Like I'm a photographer that shoots everything. I do portraits, families, um, boudoir, pets, but I also do like events like weddings. Those all got wiped out. I do a lot of headshots, like really professional executive ones. But people weren't going in an office anymore, so those got wiped out. And conventions, where all businesses come together, those got wiped out. So yeah, I've been able to coast. I've booked sessions with people I've shot with in the past who I knew were safe. But now, yeah, everyone's kind of like feeling a lot better about things now. And every time I look at my phone, I have another inquiry for like, hey, can you shoot this? And so that's gonna be me for the rest of the year. Pretty much. I'm looking forward to Halloween, the best holiday of the year. My wife and my daughter will be koalas.
Scary
I might
koalas or child
koalas. Just
okay, cool.
koalas.
Because I know Jess
Yeah.
is the horror person, so it's like, will she spin this
Yeah.
into something scary, perhaps?
We used to have like the coolest. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
This costume set will be cool, but the ones before were way cooler. We've done like Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein. Oh, dude, she's done Elvira, which was like, yeah, we've done the Adams and stuff like that. So yeah, but
For those of the kids who don't know, these are all like characters from the 80s and 90s, by the way. Look them up.
Yeah.
They do exist. They are real. They were during a time when there was color on television. I swear to you. Yes, I recognize all these characters. I used to go to a lot of comic conventions and anime conventions throughout the 2010s. I think all the way up until pandemic 2019.
Yeah.
So I definitely have seen versions of these characters being cosplayed and either on the show floor or by professionals, like at booths and stuff. So yes, just that's so cool. Does your wife cosplay? I think is the actual question here.
Not really, but kinda. So she worked retail when we met, and throughout Halloween, like every day she'd have a different costume, which would be most of the time based on a character. So her costumes would be like legit, like wow, like you might not call yourself a cosplayer, but you kind of get into character and the costume's good. So yeah, and that's another thing we bonded on. So I worked at the time in a pediatric hematology oncology office, and so pretty much the entire week of Halloween, I'd have a different costume on each day because the kids would come every day for chemo or transfusions. And so, they don't want to see the same costume every day. So that's another thing we bonded on. So Halloween is very big for us. Next year we'll be in Vermont. I booked. Okay, so my wedding client in Vermont next year is one of my first photography clients who Jess knows because she would assist me. So we're all like really close. The wedding is actually on Jess's birthday next year. So, but we're going to turn it into a vacation, and it's a Halloween costume wedding. So this is like the best development ever.
This is literally your entire life. I'm so happy for you guys. You have no idea right now. I'm just like, if anyone deserves a win in life, it's you guys, because you guys, one, are amazing, two, raising a great daughter, and three, all of these things are coinciding at the same time. And yes, just do it. All of it.
Hashtag blessed, for real.
Yeah. God, you guys are so cool. Have you shot anyone or do you have any clients or plan to come out to the West Coast for anything?
There were plans. One of my friends and clients is a professional entertainer, and so he had some shows out in the West Coast and in Europe, and we were talking about me tagging along to kind of like document the whole thing, but then COVID happened. So yeah, I do travel pretty much throughout the country. but most of my clients have been East Coast. And I think that's partially because of the travel cost, because my clients, they take on the cost. So I'm not going negative.
Nice. Well, if you do ever make it to the West Coast for any kind of event, please let us know. Please let me know. I will try to make it out and see whatever you're shooting, just because I want to see you in your element, in your world, and just seeing you work. Because
Yeah. You know what? I'll get them to pay for an assistant, and you give me my assistant for the day.
that'd be great. I could do that.
Yeah.
I could get you coffee. I could make all the coffee runs. I'm really good about coffee. I'm great at coffee. I'm great at
You're going to
understanding.
do a lot of adjusting of lights and writing down names.
I could do that.
Yeah.
I could do that. I could see
Oh,
this.
and you'll have to model for me.
Oh,
Because, you know, if I get lights set up, I
yes, the
need someone to
setups.
stand
Got it.
in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, I know the basics. I know some of these things. Okay. Cool. Just let me know. I'll be there. Well, Jay, this was an incredible conversation, man. I just feel so relaxed. This is a Tuesday night, everyone. And I feel like the rest of the week can just I'm still here for it. Come on, Tuesday. Come on, the rest of the week.
Let's do it.
Yeah. No, this was incredible, man.
Thanks for having me on. I was really kind of nervous about it, but I heard your voice. I saw you. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good. We started talking. Okay, this is going to be fine. I love it.
It means a lot. Yeah, we'll definitely have you on again. And yeah, your work allows you to travel. So we will definitely meet up at some point in the future.
Yeah,
I really want this to happen because just a cool guy, man.
You too.
Thanks. All right, let's sign out. And talk offline because we got a lot of things to talk about. All right, thank you everyone for listening to the Soju Sessions on the Soju Talk Nation podcast feed. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and continue the conversation on the Soju Talk K-pop podcast Discord. For Jay, I'm Crispy, and this has been the Soju Sessions.